Welcome to Mail. I'm Suresh Venkat. Summer is upon us, the heat is clearly on, and so we're obviously at the headquarters of the Coca-Cola Company in India. We are here to meet Arnab Roy, the Vice President of Marketing for Coca-Cola India and Southwest Asia, to talk about the company's various brands and how it plans to increase per capita consumption in India. So let's get ready to melt with Arnab Roy. Arnab, globally Coca-Cola has 5 categories, and let's see if I get them right. Coca-Cola trademark, flavored sparkling beverages, nutrition, hydration, sports tea and coffee, and what's called the emerging category. Is there an underlying philosophy that unites the 5?
It's a part of the overall beverages that our company is offering to consumers, and we have tried to classify them across different buckets. But we want to give all consumers a choice. Consumers are different. We need to ensure that everyone has a choice of whatever at any point in the day. If they want to have a juice, the nutrition category is working for them. If they want to have a Coke, obviously you have the Coke category working for them.
But it's all about choices. Unifying marketing philosophy that sort of...
It's always consumers first. I think we are all about consumers. We are all about brands. And I think that's how we start off with. We are in the business of ensuring we build some of the greatest brands in the world. And I think that's the unifying, piece.
What are the vision for these 5 categories in India? Short term, medium, long, whichever way you choose to cut the question.
I think the vision starts off with what the opportunity is in India. So I don't want to go across every category, but honestly, we have a long way to go in India. India is still a market where the per capita is extremely low. And across each of the categories, the opportunity to grow the numbers of per capita, I think, is massive. So with each of them, I think the single objective is that how can we grow your incidence? How can we grow our overall household penetration and ensure that in this process, we are also building fabulous brands.
Arnab, recently Coca-Cola's global bigwigs called out the India team for a stellar 2022. Where did this growth come from?
From everywhere, honestly. I think just to recap, 2022 was probably the best year for India and also Southwest Asia, which are very important markets. The best year in the last 20 years plus.
And which brands led the growth?
Across all the brands. So I'll give you an interesting trivia on brand Coca-Cola. Brand Coca-Cola has not had a very easy path if you go back because of multiple reasons. But 2022 was interesting. We grew more in Coke in 22 than we have grown on absolute terms over the last 10 years put together. So you can just see the math of it. The other interesting trivia is that India was the 3rd largest incremental contributor to brand Coke's growth after Mexico and Brazil. And I think if you've been always, I would say, hearing the numbers, big Coke markets are in Latin America. But this was for the first time India was also there in the top 3. Not in percentage growth, but absolute incremental growth.
Another, what do you attribute this spurt in growth to? Is it like revenge drinking, lockdown consumption? What is it?
It's a combination of everything. If marketing was a very deterministic, subject, we would have had ChatGPT giving your answer. But unfortunately, that's not the case. It's always an interesting combination of everything. The Indian economy is doing very well. That's, I think, one. I think we were able to ensure that we had a fantastic partnership with all our bottling partners and ensured that the supply chain and the logistics and the distribution, I think we have been improving every year. So the horizontal reach of our overall products have been improving. And I think we can also, fairly say that across all our brands, we were able to improve our demand also. So we could improve our overall household penetration numbers. We could improve our volume per outlet, which is a clear, I would say, function of how your brands are perceived and how your brands are actually felt by your consumers. Because if your brands do well, your vertical offtake also improves.
Arnab, according to industry estimates, the penetration of packaged branded soft drinks in India is amongst the lowest in the world. Right? First, can you give us a comparative sense? How low are we compared to, say, Latin America?
Yeah, so I can at least share for our company. So if you add all our beverages put together, broadly, the per capita is around 30. Right? If you go to Latin America, that number is on an average around 200 plus.
Are we talking units, milliliters, liters?
So it is so it's about unit servings. So how many servings?
30 unit servings.
On an approximately, means in 1 year, right? As compared to Latin America, as I said, And even within Latin America, there are extremes. So if you go to a market like Mexico, only on brand Coca-Cola, it's around 500 plus. So you have a 30 in India across all our beverages, and you have more than 500 in a country like Mexico. That's a lot of gap, but also clearly shows you the opportunity we have in India, even now.
So what are the challenges to penetrating the market in India? Similar to
I think so. I would say three things. First is I'll start with the consumer. Let's be very honest. I think the way the sparkling brands have been built over the years, it's not a part of your daily habit, for example. Unlike when you go to Latin America, when you have a meal, you always have a Coca-Cola with you. So how do you make sparkling drinks a part of your everyday lives? I think it's going to be very important. That's one. So how can you make all our brands more relevant for everyday use? I think that's one. Secondly, I think even in terms of supply chain and overall penetration, I think we still have a long way to go. Can we become more affordable? I think we can. Because of the tax structure in India, we probably have not been able to provide a lot of affordability to the Indian consumer. But there are ways around it, and I think we are working towards that. So affordability kind of still, I would say, remains a small barrier, but we are working on interesting solutions to ensure that we can still afford it. And the third thing is, I think as we see our overall, partnership with our different bottling partners, how we can continue to expand our production capacities. I think that's obviously an interesting thing because it'll need a lot of capital investment over the next few years. And that's also part of the overall business that all of us are trying to do, that how fast you can get the production capacity, increased and running.
Arnab, there's a marketing cliche that there are two Indias, what's called urban India and rural Bharat. Do these sort of broad brush demographics still apply, or do you think it's far more nuanced than that?
I think it's far more nuanced. But I think you can still, I would say, clearly see there are opportunities on how you go and offer a portfolio in a place like Gurgaon, and then what's the portfolio and the packaging and the pricing options as you go to rural India. So the good news is that there is enough growth opportunities both in urban and rural, but there are differences. And India, I think, is becoming an interesting
in-between category. That's neither urban nor rural,
Absolutely.
if I'm not mistaken.
Always.
Which you can't classify as urban or rural.
Always.
Okay.
But here's an interesting thing. I think if you see where the big growth is going to come from, I strongly feel it's going to come from small town India. And it's going to be that mix of where the blend is happening between urban and rural.
Margins between the
Absolutely.
Urban and the
So you will see a massive amount of growth, at least we expect, to come from the B and C tier cities in India.
So in 2022, a report said that Maaza is the fastest growing brand for Coca-Cola in India. What does this say about Indians? That we love mangoes?
Yeah, Indians love mangoes. We are the world's largest producer of mangoes.
Okay. And what does that say to a marketer?
We are a massive believer that Maaza is a very powerful brand. I think Maaza is obviously a mango-based brand, but it's also a brand by itself, which is very, very strong. Across most of our brand equity metrics, it is one of the best brands that we have. Phenomenal loyalty. Every equity metric that we measure, whether it's something we call brand love score, Maaza is there at the top. So we are extremely bullish on what Maaza's potential could be in India over the next many years. And I think we have just started to, I would say, touch the initial base.
For more fruit-based or nutrition-based offerings?
You have to be careful on that. Maaza is a mango-first brand. Maaza is not all the fruits brand. And one of the stories I keep explaining, Maaza is mango.
Okay.
Because in India, you've got mango. Mango is not just a fruit. Mango is a dessert in India. Exactly.
It's a way of life.
Exactly. Mango is a way of life. Mango and apple are very different. So huge potential in mango, and I think Maaza can obviously ensure that they're there to tap the potential.
On the other side of the spectrum, there's reports that Coca-Cola is going to enter the ORS, or the oral rehydration solutions business. Can you confirm this and what your plans are?
I think it's an opportunity. We have already entered that space in a lot of countries around the world. For example, in a market like Mexico. As I said, we want to ensure that we have enough beverage choices for everyone. I think there is a big demand for ORSL. You have to get the right business model and also the right brand with the right edge. We also launched something called Limca Sports. That's not exactly playing in the ORSL space, but if you look at the need state it is trying to go and fulfill, it's the isotonic space. So it's basically Limca with actual isotonic salts and with a little bit of, glucose and then lemon juice. So it still is serving
Isn't
the
that
same
sports nutrition
same
space?
on the isotonic space.
Okay.
What it's
Arnab, we are hearing lots of reports that we are record heat waves in Jaipur and Bombay and Delhi. Now, for most citizens, they're going to groan at these temperatures. But for marketers like yourself, is that good news? Because if you have a blockbuster summer, you're going to have blockbuster summer sales?
beyond a certain temperature. It's
Yeah.
not good
It's
for
not
us
good because
people are not out of home.
Okay.
And when people are not out of home, you will actually see a drop in away from home consumption. For us, out of home consumption is very important.
Critical.
So we
You
like
want it to be slightly warm,
hot
but not
and
too
humid,
warm.
but too hot, it's not very good
And
for
summer
us.
is typically the time when big
Correct.
soft drink brands unveil their mega campaigns. So what do we have in store this year?
I think that's a very interesting topic. I think this whole marketing model of big campaigns in summer, I think is gone.
It's gone.
Honestly, it's gone. I think that made sense when everything was centered around TV and a few channels.
Mhm.
Kind of right now, with the amount of fragmentation which is happening,
Mhm.
with digital becoming so big,
Mhm.
always on,
Mhm.
obviously, you cannot depend on one or two big campaigns.
Okay.
And again, we are trying to deseasonalize the business. So having one big summer campaign, I think honestly,
Tell us about deseasonalizing
is
them.
a
How do
thing
you
of the
keep
past.
the Coca-Cola brands relevant through the year? What happens in winter, for instance?
So, in fact, we are already seeing very strong results as to how you can keep the brand relevant in the festival period. So that's in Q3
Mhm.
and then again in Q4. And if you actually see the algorithm for growth in the last 2 years, and one of the big kind of drivers of that is not just seeing a spike in summer,
Mhm.
but actually we are doing far better in Q3 and Q4.
Okay.
And if you actually look at the math of the growth, that's where I think has been the difference
And what are
versus
the drivers in those periods?
last
if I
year.
may ask?
I think you need to ensure that your distribution is on.
Mhm.
So you need to ensure that you work with your bottling partners and ensure that all the retail stores, the activation is on, the
You
product is
have the
there.
product.
You still have chilled products out there. And you need to have relevant, I would say, communication to ensure that whether you're able to build your habit, whether it's with meals or you're having a promotion with a festival, period. So how do you keep the brand relevant in that period? I think is very important. So it's again combination of amazing operations and very strong marketing.
Has the consumers' behaviors changed significantly in the last 2.5 years of lockdown?
It has.
Okay.
And we track something called occasions. We track something called need states on an everyday basis.
Mhm.
And I think there are big shifts which have happened after, pre and post COVID.
Okay.
So we see that in-home consumption,
Mhm.
for example, how many people are ordering a meal through a Zomato or a Swiggy? They have all seen a big number.
Mhm.
And with all of them, we have seen a good amount of consumption happening with our sparkling drinks.
Mhm.
So we clearly see an uptick in more occasions at home, which is far better than what was there, pre-COVID, right? Because more people spend time at home. There were more occasions that they discovered, and how you are able to go and tap into those occasions, obviously, is the job that we have.
And does this sort of force your marketing team to innovate on the fly because the
100%.
lockdown hit us out of the blue, right?
Absolutely.
So can you give us a sense of how what kind of framework they use to innovate?
When you talk about innovation, it's not just about coming with a new flavor or coming with a new product.
Absolutely.
It
can be
it could be
a
as
new way
to
of thinking.
It could be what is the right pack price, combination.
Mhm.
What are the right channels you want to go and invest out there, right? So a huge increase in investment on how we are activating grocery outlets. Huge investment on how we are now increasing our investment on e-commerce, for example, which was not there so much, before the lockdown. And that's the change the whole team is working towards.
The next question I have for you is, let's talk about the move to low sugar or zero sugar drinks, especially in cities like Bombay. It could be attributed to vanity, of course, since it is the city of Bollywood and we're all trying to lose weight all the time. Sometimes it's easier to find Diet Coke and Coke Zero than Coke Regular or Coke Classic.
Yeah.
What do you attribute this to, this whole...
It's a global trend.
Mhm.
We believe it's going to continue. It's not just Bombay or South Bombay. I think it goes back to the choice, if you see. You can't just say that I am a rich kid in South Bombay and therefore I need a Diet Coke. Everybody, even a kind of middle class family in Ludhiana,
They're also trying to lose weight
everybody.
and look good, yeah.
Yeah, it's not about also weight. It's about how do you balance your calories.
Correct.
So I may have 2 Cokes in a week and I might have 2 or 3 Coke Zero Sugar,
Mhm.
means to balance out everything.
Mhm.
And I think that's the basis of our promise, on the new Coke Zero Sugar product overall. It tastes exactly like the original Coca-Cola. And one interesting piece is that if you look at our global growth, Coke Zero Sugar has been the largest contributor to the overall global growth for the company. So not just Coca-Cola trademark, the scale of that growth has been huge. So it's a massive global trend. It's already happening in India. And it's up to us how much we're able to produce and then ensure we are
So, but Arnab, as a
able to
consumer,
distribute
I
it.
want Maaza Zero, I want Limca Zero, I want everything zero.
Absolutely.
Is that in the works? How big is your zero portfolio right now?
It can be, I think the potential is across all the brands.
Okay.
The challenge is how many brands can I go and execute in the marketplace, plus whether I have enough manufacturing plants and lines to make all of that. So I have to optimize right now.
All right, let's talk about Coke Studio Bharat as a pure digital initiative. It was on TV, it's purely digital now. Why?
I think we are seeing a massive transformation in the kind of media vehicles across India, right? I think digital is becoming big and digital is becoming important. It does not mean you put your TV ad on YouTube and you call it digital. That's not digital. I think you have to completely understand the ecosystem. And how do you understand the ecosystem of how to ensure that you're able to communicate with people who are always on Instagram, or they're making a reel, they're making their own piece of content. This is your core TG. How do you go and engage with them? Very difficult to do it with one or two TVCs. So it has to be a digital first platform. The reach is there because one of the things you actually mentioned, what happened pre-COVID and post-COVID. Pre-COVID, post-COVID, India basically became by far the largest market for YouTube, largest market for Instagram, by far. It's not a small lead anymore. It's like everybody knows India is the future market for all of these platforms. Consumers are there. If you are not there to engage with them, then you're going to be missing out.
Arnab, suppose you were heading a TV channel and you were watching this show, how worried would you be?
I would be worried.
So
I think TV has got its opportunities. I think live sports, for example, there are some other genres, but we do believe that live sports will continue to play a very important role on TV. But what we have seen from other markets, in the US, in Latin America and everywhere, I think people will have to reinvent themselves a lot.
How do you measure the impact of a content-based idea like Coke Studio?
Last year, we launched Coke Studio Bangla in Bangladesh. Also had an impact in the West Bengal area for us and also across the Bengali community. And then we launched Coke Studio Tamil and we've launched Coke Studio Bharat. And we are learning every day, I'm being very honest.
It seems like a big brand initiative that leaves you feeling warm inside, this brand glow. But does it actually translate into any actual sales?
I'll give you two interesting facts. Coke Studio Pakistan, across multiple analysis that has been done by internal and external people, Coke Studio Pakistan has been the single largest driver for brand Coke in Pakistan over a span of 10 years. Coming back to your question on the business impact, it improves brand saliency, it improves your spontaneous brand awareness, builds what the brand stands for. And I think it's done that, I would say, magic in Pakistan. I can very comfortably say the impact has been very good and very strong in Bangladesh because we have done it for 1 year. We have the equity scores. We have done a lot of experiments on taking pricing up, for example, and what was the impact on things like pricing going up, and you're not really having a lot of marketing campaigns except for Coke Studio. And I think the impact has been very positive. So Bharat, I think, and Coke Studio Tamil, I think when hopefully we meet back in 8 or 9 months, I'll have a far more detailed analysis.
Now let's talk about a contentious issue. Celebrity endorsers who jump back and forth between Coke and your rival brands. How does this work? Last year, he was endorsing a rival brand and saying drink only that. This year, you're paying him a lot of money to say drink only Coke. As a marketer, talk me through your thinking. Why would you do this?
See, I can't comment on what is there in the past. Okay. I can comment, it starts again with what the campaign idea is, what the brand needed at that point in time. And we scanned the market and saw who was available. It's not about us going and poaching. Okay, a particular person is,
he or she
is doing the endorsement because he or she was available at that, in the market at that point in time. And we had a fit that what our brand messaging was, we saw a fit. Now, is it complex that there is so many swaps kind of going around? It is complex.
Forget as a marketer, as a citizen, as a consumer, the swaps, right?
Agree.
You know it.
Agree. Internally as a brand, the brand is the most important thing, right? If it was a celebrity who's the most important thing, a celebrity is important in certain cases to bring the campaign to life. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, if you start with what the brand is, and the brand is the most important thing, that is going to be my number one kind of
celebrity
task.
has to fit the brand, and if it so happens,
It has to be a brand story.
So, Arnab, where do you stand on the rise of the influencer? Many influencers at an aggregate level are saying we pull in as many views or as many followers as celebrities. Do you see your brand being endorsed by influencers?
Absolutely. We are already doing it. So if you see the way we have been trying to work and market Coke Studio Bharat or Coke Studio Bangla, influencers have played a very important role. We will continue to scale our investments up on influencers. They are here to stay. We have to find new ways and disruptive ways on how we will be obviously also work with them. But they are going to be a very important part of the marketing ecosystem. Absolutely.
Okay. Coke has always been bullish in sports as a media property. Right? Is live sports the only way for companies to get a faster reach and build up, or are there other new dimensions in sports that you're exploring?
100%.
As well?
Again, it's a very passionate topic for all of us in this team. I think live sports, as I said, will be very big and we'll be a part of it. But even in terms of other sports, and I'll give you small examples, we believe that investing on the ground and supporting non-cricket sports is going to be one of the best returns you can have in India. So we are supporting, for example, boxing. We are supporting tennis. We are supporting hockey. In the recently concluded Hockey World Cup, we were the only consumer goods sponsor, and we ensured that we were able to help as much as we can, bring in whatever our experience was, worked with the organizers. It's a small examples. We are also supporting the Indian Super League in football on the ground. We are supporting, as I said, tennis. We are working with Vishal Uppal to ensure that we can groom a lot of grassroots tennis out there. So sports is a very highly untapped market. I think the returns can be very strong, but I feel more than returns, it is also as a corporate duty to ensure that we are able to support Indian sport. And it's not just cricket. It's a whole array of sports. We feel as a big company.
Would you say it's enlightened self-interest that you're supporting a sport today?
100%. We are completely.
It'll become big one day and you'll be ahead of the curve?
If it becomes great, but even if it doesn't become, it's the right thing to do. In our company's DNA, we supported the Olympic movement since 1928. So that's pretty well established that we are here to also support sports across.
Where does Coke India specifically stand on the issue of the metaverse? Where are you in the metaverse?
I think there are experiments happening. We still don't understand. I don't understand it yet as exactly. So the use case is still not very clear to me. But you have to keep having small experiments. Will it be there? I think it will have a role. But until we are very clear about what the use case is, it's kind of a wait and watch experiment kind of a mode.
Arnab, thank you very much for talking to us at Met.
Thank you.
And with that, it's a wrap on this episode. You can follow Melt on social media. The handle is Ready to Melt, or simply log on to readytomelt.com if you'd like to follow me. I'm @Suvenk on Twitter. Till next week, goodbye and thanks for watching.